Hey guys, welcome to Early Access with Cohesive Friendship Unit. I'm your moderator Chris, and I'm here with Jake
Hey guys.
and Jeremy.
Yo, what's up?
All right, all right. How we all doing? Pretty good?
Pretty good.
Yeah, dope.
Ready for the Christmas break.
Ready for the Christmas break? What are
Yeah.
what are some things you're maybe hoping to pick up
Over this holiday season,
over maybe, over
Why are you afraid to say Christmas, Jake?
over Christmas?
because I like to appeal to all our viewers.
That's a fair point. Shout out to all the viewers.
According to
All of
YouTube
them.
analytics, it's 70% Jewish.
Shout
That
out
doesn't
to all
seem
the Jewish
accurate.
listeners.
Yep, very true. Very true.
Happy Hanukkah.
So what are your hopes for pickups? I'll throw mine out. I'm looking at a Logitech G502. It's a nice sharp mouse. I wanted the originally I wanted the Razer Death Adder, which I used a little bit, but I was in the store and I flipped. They had both like next to each other, and I took a look at the Logitech one because I currently have a Logitech, and it was crispy. It has the free flying scroll wheel, which is like a big deal for me. It's a
So you
win.
could just scroll forever.
Infinitely.
Infinite scroll.
When I'm at work, I like to just like hold my mouse in my hand and just like fidget with it, just like flick it.
Yeah,
and
that's
let
reasonable.
it like go. Zoo, zoo, zoo. So,
Are you gonna bring your gaming mouse to work?
no, but like I would continue that trend at home.
Oh, I got you.
Plus-
See, it's funny
well, no.
because he's a programmer
Yeah.
and he needs his mouse to work.
I do work from
It's true.
home, so I would use it for work. But regardless, what about you guys? Anything?
Well, you sent me the Target ad for next week,
Oh, hell
and there's
yeah.
a deal going on for Nintendo Switch games, which I'm pumped for. I definitely want to get Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
Because I borrowed
you're
it from
liking
the
it.
library for like 2 weeks, and now I'm having like withdrawals because it's been so long. It's like I want to just surf down the mountain and like shoot some goblins and
It's just that
good
good.
stuff. It's good fun.
Nice, dude. All right, Jay. Anything? Yay, nay, maybe.
I asked for an Xbox One controller.
Nice.
I currently have
That's a good one.
two Xbox 360 controllers. I have a wired one, which was new, which I like, but I also just got a Steam Link from when they had that crazy sale. So I'm all excited to like do some couch gaming. But my wireless Xbox 360 controller is super used and super grimy. So I'm trying to upgrade.
I think Super's a little hyperbolic, but
Nah, it's she grimy. Like I already cleaned it significantly when you saw it, Chris. Like
All right.
it's in tough shape. Like the bottom's fallen off.
all right.
The like little notches on the
Well-
joysticks are all gone.
Do you have Bluetooth so you can like?
No, well,
You
so
see
then
the
that's the other
tech.
thing. I asked for the little adapter thing.
So yeah,
okay.
so you wouldn't
For
have
the
to get the
wireless
Bluetooth
controllers.
one.
I don't know how much like a Bluetooth. I
Dongle.
don't know how you would.
They're not much.
No, like, because you can install Bluetooth in your computer. I don't know if it's a card. I don't want to sound like an idiot.
No, you
but,
can
like,
you can get like a
"Yo, get the
USB one.
Bluetooth card.
You can get like a USB one, or some motherboards have them built in. You can do like a PCIe thing. There's a bunch of ways you can do it, but he could just get the USB Xbox thing. Wouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, I'm finna get the first party Microsoft little USB
Yeah.
guy because with just one of those, it's first party. It supports all of the 360 controllers, which I have PlayStation 3 controllers that I tried to get set up when I first got my gaming PC, and it ended up, at least to me, being a lot more work than it was worth. So with the 360 one, like it can support up to 16 controllers at a time or some crazy thing. So like if you guys brought over controllers, we could all play, whatever on the Steam Link. So
Yeah.
there
And
you go.
and I'm holding mine right now. My Xbox One controller. It's much nicer than the 360. Not that the 360 is bad, but if you have like a shoddy 360 and you're looking to get a new one anyway, might as well be a one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
At
are
this
nice.
point, they're nice. I was like low key looking for the like Elite controller if there was ever one like half off. But
Yeah, I feel that.
yeah. Anyway, so what about what we've been up to? What have you guys been playing? I know
Oh man.
I know Jeremy has this very special game in his heart that he's been playing.
All right, you guys gotta stop making fun of me.
Well, you gotta
But
stop making fun of
You gotta convince
my
us.
shit, and I'll start making fun of your shit.
Nah, you can make fun of my shit.
All right.
I zoomed through. See, but people are gonna get the wrong impression.
He
Good
zoomed.
one.
He
Good
zoomed.
I zoomed through Sonic Generations in the past like week. It was like I play games pretty generously. Like I don't actually play them that quickly.
Yeah.
So I put like 7 hours into Sonic Generation. I did quite a few of they have like little challenge stages in addition to the ones that you like have to do. And I have to say, where Sonic Adventure 2, which I had hoped would just be a nostalgia fest, was a pretty big disappointment, Sonic Generations was actually really fun. As someone who never played any of the 2D games, I didn't. I thought it was a really, fun, accessible way to blow, 5, 6, 7 hours.
Review it.
And
Review
would
it.
definitely recommend.
Out of 10. Out of 10. Out of 10.
I mean, it's tough because it's like a very, very, very casual game. It kind of plays itself, particularly if you're not looking to get like the S rank score, if you're just kind of going through. And it's definitely, I would say, oriented at kids. And there's no wonkiness with like camera stuff for the most part. But it is also really it's fun. It's just very casual and very fun. There's a lot of the soundtrack is great. It looks great. It's very intuitive. I would probably give it like a 6.5 or a 7, but
Oh my
like
god!
I mean that in the best way.
Called it so bad. I
Oh.
was like, it's gonna be a signature 6.5.
Or a 7. No, but I mean that like in a really good way. Like I can't give it like it's just not
Like-
like I'm getting like I've put almost 60 hours into Fallout New Vegas and I'm giving that like an 8. You know what I mean?
Like an on
So-
par with Limbo
or an
kind of
8.5.
6.5, because I believe
I didn't really like Limbo.
you gave but that was when I asked you what would you think of Limbo, you were like 6.5.
So if we're gonna line them all up, I have to start like I don't know. Limbo, I would actually probably put it like a 5.
Jesus. All right.
Wow.
All right.
Like
well,
I think Sonic Generations a significantly better use of your time than Limbo.
damn. Well, this is getting a little too negative for my liking. So
See,
I'm
I'm
This
not
is the
being
old one,
negative.
right?
It's just
no,
you
no,
know,
no. It's just I'm feeling down right now. I'm just
Ouch.
feeling down. What are
This is
you
the
up to?
Sonic
Jake?
Generations from like 2011,
10?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
No,
around there.
like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is fairly recent.
Like
'Cause
last
the
year. or
release
year
date
before.
was November 1st, 2011.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. Okay, then my bad. Then yeah, I guess
It
from
may
there.
have just been ported over to Steam a couple years ago. I don't know that, but
Huh. Well, in any event, it was dope. Enjoyed it very much.
Was dope. All right,
Dope would recommend.
Jake.
So I've been playing a little bit more of Pyre. It's been great.
He's into it now.
I am, dude. I don't know what. I don't know. It's just so much better after. If you've heard anything about Pyre, and I'm pretty sure I've said this like every podcast, but once you get to the big twist, I wouldn't even say halfway through the game. It's probably a couple hours in. It changes like absolutely everything, and it just gets so much better.
Yeah, I think I know what the twist is, and when I didn't like seek it out. I think I heard it listening to a video, and now that I know what it is, it's a lot more appealing. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know. It just feels like you're kind of just going through, and you're like, "What is going on?" And then all of a sudden, it's like,
Why am I playing a sports game? Like,
right? Why am I playing a sports game? Why are these people all weird looking and they don't say anything? They talk in weird voices and stuff, but it's been good. Besides that, just PUBG warships with the boys. I checked out a bit of Destiny, tried out the trial, and that's been good so far.
yeah. Any more thoughts on that new map, real quick? I
PUBG map?
Yes, Brian and I did a few games alone, and I think it is, like, I'm going to use my coin term, verticality. It's good. I like that. I do. And so Brian and I were looking at some more. There's a lot of diversity in this map, whereas, like, the first map, I mean, there is a lot of diversity in the first map, but from, like, a building standpoint, a lot of the assets are kind of recycled in the first map. Well, not to, like, a problematic state. Houses are houses at the end of the day, but like when you go into the junkyard in the new map, that's like every asset in there is, like, far as I can tell, unique. And then you go over to Brian and I were in like a giant boxing arena with like a boxing ring, and then there's diversity in the assets, and I think that helps.
That's good because I don't know. It's a desert map, so it seems like it wouldn't be as diverse.
Yeah, so from that perspective, it is. I mean, a lot of the rural areas are just that. It's just, sand and rock. But
I mean, my only complaint so far, granted, I've only played maybe half a dozen rounds on the new map, is some of the taller buildings you can only go in like the first 2 floors and then the roof.
yeah,
Which I think that drives me crazy.
yeah. No,
But besides that, I really like the new map, which
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I was skeptical when they're like, "Oh yeah, desert." I was like, "That sounds shitty."
and I looked at like a map overlay. It is actually bigger than the first map, which is odd.
It's pretty much the same.
They're
size,
they're
I think.
very similar.
Yeah, they're very similar.
But
Yeah.
it is like a lot of, there were rumors that it was going to be smaller, and I guess they either scaled it up or those were just straight up wrong. Yeah.
Fake news. Don't listen to the rumors.
Fake
people.
news. Don't listen.
Don't check
listen.
out your boys on
Don't look
early
at
access.
guys.
For accurate news
Do
and
yeah.
analysis.
Do not look at any other news sources. We are the most reliable, 100%.
For sure.
Nothing here is fake. So I guess I'm gonna do a little review. I was gonna do a Doom review, but then the Game Awards happened. Hellblade got a lot of nominations. Hellblade won a lot of awards it was nominated for. Hellblade was on sale because it won a lot of awards, and then I bought Hellblade, played it, beat it very quickly. I kind of marathoned it over like a weekend, so I'm ready. I'm gonna review it.
Tell me, I'm interested to hear because I've only been an hour into
So yeah,
it.
Jake also got it, right? But you haven't. Yeah,
I got it before the Game Awards, but just haven't put the time in.
All right, so I picked it up for $20. It's usually 30, and I was, after playing it for like 2 hours, I was so ready to hate this game. Like, just rip it apart. Like the whole time I was playing, I was like, oh, when I review it, I'm gonna be like that guy who wrecks it. Who's like going against the norm. Like, this is a piece of trash, garbage. Like, yeah, it's a good experience, but it's a bad game kind of thing.
6.5.
Yeah, well, no, I was gonna
6.5.
say like, if you want me to treat it as a game, then it's gonna be like a 4. If you want me to treat it as like an experience, then I'll concede a little and say, yeah, maybe it's like an 8. But there was a point, probably around, I want to say 3/4 of the way in, where like I was like, this game is fucking amazing. But I mean, there was a point earlier than that where I was like, all right, this is pretty good. But like right around 75% of the way in, and that last quarter of the game was like, holy shit, this is fantastic. So anyways, I'll backtrack a little bit and say it's a AA game, self-proclaimed. The studio is probably best known for their latest game, which was the Devil May Cry remake, which had mixed responses. But so it's a smaller team, maybe a couple dozen people working on this, but they obviously don't have as big of a budget, and the whole point of this was to push out this AA that's bigger than an indie but smaller than a AAA, and prove that there's a market for this like budget tier but still really good product. And I think they definitely succeeded. It's a game that you play as a character, Sedua, who's suffering from psychosis, notably schizophrenia, and she has the severed head of her loved one that she is trying to carry to the goddess Helena to have him revived at the cost of her soul, essentially. And it's just her journey through her version of hell, and through her own mind, trying to accomplish this task. And along the way, she obviously has voices in her head via the psychosis, which is done in a way. I was actually really excited for this, and this was honestly one of the most underwhelming parts for me. She has voices in her head. They are done using a technique called binaural audio, where they use 2 microphones to record, and it allows the sound to sound kind of 3-dimensional. So I thought, when I went into this, I thought that was, and a lot of people built it up as like the big selling point. For me, it was one, I wanted the voices to kind of like fuck with you more. I wanted them to really get in there and like tell you nasty things. Honestly, the way they presented it, I almost want to have schizophrenia because all the voices did was tell you what to do. They were helpful. They were like, oh, you know, I wonder what happens if you go over here. Like, go look up, or like, watch out, someone's behind you. Like they just like helped her. And from that perspective, I thought it kind of flopped. I didn't think it portrayed the detrimental, deleterious effects of psychosis at all. It was entirely beneficial for like 95% of the experience. That was a letdown. On the flip side of that, the actual audio and the score is fantastic. It's so good. Like, I love the music in it. It's extremely good. Also, the visuals, extremely good. It's one of the best looking games I've ever played. The art direction is phenomenal. And yeah, the areas are relatively small. They're scaled back, and you can tell that, but not at the cost of the experience overall. So the gameplay is a mix between kind of three things. It's like one part walking sim, one part puzzle solve, and one part action game. And the walking sim is good if you like walking simulators. Like if you like just walking in, taking in the setting, enjoying the experience, you'll like it. The puzzles go from pretty bad to like literally lining up shapes to pretty clever that get almost kind of Portal-esque. And the action or the combat portion, which is relatively small, it's probably 20% of the game, is you think it's very basic at first because there's no tutorial ever at any point in the game, but it gets deeper and deeper because you figure out more elements and they expect you and demand you to figure out more elements as you play. So that built on itself. So the reason I was not into this at first was because you were just walking around and doing these matching the shape puzzles. And that was really just to get you comfortable with what the game expected, and then it just gradually got better and better. The atmosphere got better, the acting got better, and by better I mean more involved. The story got more involved. It's just, by the time you get to the end, the last quarter of that game is just so damn good. I loved it. And the only other thing I have to say about it is that should be adapted or remade, or somebody should make a version of this in VR. I think it's the perfect fit for VR, where it's one part walking sim, which is relatively calm. It's one part puzzle solving in a slow moving environment, which is relatively calm. You're taking in the scenery, and I think the schizophrenia would come off a lot better if it was a first person VR experience. That sense of presence would really like drive it home. But
this would be like the perfect game for VR.
I think it would be
totally right with that.
Unbelievably good in VR.
This is all an experience game. You know?
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think I'm going to give it like an 8.8. I think the beginning is not as good. I think you do have to give it some. It's only 7 hours, and if the first 3 hours are lackluster, that's kind of a problem. Even if the last 2 are fantastic. So you have to give it some of your time. There are some weird quirks. I had some weird bugs, and I had 3 hard crashes. And the psychosis wasn't as good. Other than that, very, very strong throughout.
So 8.8 out of 10, that's pretty good for the complaints that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, so the 3 hard crashes, I was on PC, so to an extent, I can't say, you know, like
you can't 100% say it was a game.
So like maybe I could say like, well, if you average that out across PCs, like maybe you would have 1 hard crash for the average player or something. Again, I can't pinpoint that. The other, like there was one gameplay bug where I couldn't progress that I had to look up just to verify that it was a bug. Like I had to say like, I'm pretty sure I did what I needed to do to advance, but nothing's happening. And everyone was like, yeah, you have to like do this weird button combination to get the game to trigger if you are caught in this problem. So yeah, I mean, there are problems with it. And this is, 6 months down the line, like this should be patched, should be fairly robust.
Right.
It's not like I played it day one, so technically it has some problems, and there were other technical like quirks where like the music doesn't blend. For instance, like if you're standing, if they want you to be solving a puzzle in this like one area, but you take one step out of the area, the music completely cuts off. It goes from like 100% volume to 0, and then if you take one step in, it starts again. It's really like jarring. There's no like fading and stuff like that, but all relatively minor.
Yeah, if I could throw in a couple of thoughts on it, because I'm maybe an hour in or so. I'm on like the second match the shapes puzzle essentially, and the first one that kind of like just teaches you how the whole puzzle solving thing works is not too bad. The second one I got stuck on for probably 30 minutes out of the hour that I played, which was pretty frustrating.
Yeah,
But
that would be.
like even the I don't know, at least for me, the experience with the voices hasn't been. I guess I had really high expectations going into this game.
I did too.
Mostly because it's been hyped up so much.
I thought it was going to be like mind blowing.
Yeah, I think I kind of got a little too swept up in that, and it was a little disappointing.
Which
to
is
start
why,
with.
and that's why I'm surprised. Like when the soundtrack kicks up, I'm surprised nobody's like really admiring the sound work, and the cinematography is so good. It's very like Kojima-esque, all long shots, all really awesome.
Right, and I think it looks great. I mean, there's some. I don't know if you experienced any micro stutter with your game. I was getting a little bit when I was playing, so it might just be something with my setup.
No, I was getting. I mean, granted, this game's demanding, but I was running max settings at 4K with a 1080 overclocked, and it was like barely keeping 30. It was like it never went above 30. It was usually like 30 to 32 and would occasionally dip.
Okay.
So it like pushed my hardware.
Yeah. So at least for me, I'm excited to get back into it. I'm hoping kind of take some time off from the first initial play to kind of reset my expectations for it.
Yeah, so did you get like the rot yet?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I left off.
All right. So and then they told you have to go through those 2 gates or whatever.
Right, and I took the fire gate.
Yeah, so I did that one too first.
I solved that puzzle right outside the gate essentially.
Once you get through those 2 gods, that's when like, and you go into the next thing. That's when it escalates to the first like, oh, this is a good game, and then like once you get to like the 2/3 mark, you're like, oh, this is fantastic.
Well, I'm looking forward to playing the rest of it.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, let's move on to the news and let's talk about Destiny.
Oh boy,
Jake, I think you're probably going to be doing a lot of the fill-in for this, but
Our Destiny ambassador.
Yeah, our guy who checked it out. So anyways, I saw the story. Well, Jake put the story up on the Google Doc, and then I found that they started doing corrective measures. So we'll piece it together. Basically, what happened was Destiny's Curse of Osiris expansion came out relatively recently, and the issue behind it was a lot of core content was actually locked out from people who bought the base game. So if you bought the base game in September, October, and you were playing it having a good time, but you didn't buy the Curse of Osiris that came out the other week, then you were locked out of content that you had once been able to access. That's more or less it, right, Jake?
yeah, that's essentially it. The way it wasn't necessarily a hard lockout. It wasn't like, oh, you can't get to these areas. It was they
the power
raised
level,
the
right?
level cap
Yeah.
with the Curse of Osiris DLC, and then because of that, subsequently raised essentially the required power level that you need to play a lot of missions and locations in the game.
Yeah.
And since you can't reach that elevated power level with the base game, you were essentially locked out because you couldn't handle it with what you had.
Yeah, and so they are taking, or have begun to take corrective measures on this. But and and they're to a large extent reversing the problems. They reopened PvP events. They reopened non-DLC players to endgame activity. But my biggest issue with this is that this is kind of Strike 2. And really they shouldn't even, they don't deserve a Strike 2. But, you know, Strike 1 was a few weeks ago when people found that they were being throttled on their leveling. And, you know, they made a big stink about it. And Bungie was like, oh, you got us, sorry. Like, oh, wonder how that happened. Must have been a bug. I mean, they didn't say that, but they never super much took the blame for it. And, you know, this again, like Curse of Osiris comes out and people are like, you're locking us out of all this. This is mandatory DLC essentially. And Destiny's like, oh, or Bungie's like, oh, you got us. Whoops. How could we have made that? Like, this is, you know, they shouldn't have to be called out every time they do anything. It seems like they're just every single update, they're trying to sneak something by.
Right, and the kind of frustrating thing about this is like their first strike, where they were essentially throttling players' XP gains, was so bad. It kind of makes this seem not as bad.
I think this is worse.
Honest, this is serious. Like,
yeah,
this is seriously bad. That I mean, they're saying that they just like didn't realize it, but I mean, come on, you're a professional game studio. There's no way that you didn't realize that raising the level cap on stuff is gonna lock people out.
What was QA like? Oh, we didn't test the end game.
Well,
like, come on.
So based on the statement that they put out on their website, I don't think they're really saying they didn't realize it. They're kind of saying that this was kind of a system that they had wanted, where they wanted to provide, like, they were kind of saying that they intentionally were trying to keep some players at the lower tier to like play content that they felt had been looked over in the previous iteration of Destiny, and that they would have these like challenging, I've never played Destiny, but these challenging new levels, basically, or raids or whatever events, would only be accessible to the people who had reached the new level cap. So like they basically are admitting that this is a system that they wanted to set up, and they're just saying like, but you guys are pissed off, so they're rolling back some of it. They are keeping some of the stuff exclusively for people who own Curse of Osiris, and they've said that in the future, some of the material will still only be available to people who buy the newest DLC. So like this, to a much smaller degree, will be recurrent with every new update expansion.
So for me, this kind of sucks. So like if I bought PUBG, for instance, this is kind of a similar example. So let's say I buy PUBG. Let's pretend it's not in early access. Let's pretend I bought it, and it has the two maps now. Let's pretend that it has the original map and the desert map. I was playing the original map, right, and having a good time with the original map. I quote unquote bought the base game, and then they announced that the desert map's coming out, and I choose not to pay the whatever. I choose not to pay for that map. Like they're like, oh, it's DLC, you got to pay like $10, and I'm like, you know what, I'm having a fine enough time with my original map. And the new map drops, and they just like randomly take away like the military base for all people who didn't buy the DLC. So now I'm kind of in this position where like, well, I liked the military base. I enjoy going to the military base. That's something I like to do. That's definitely a key part of that map. I'm a little salty. I feel like, one, I deserve this because I paid for a game in a state where there was a military base. It feels kind of weird for you to take it away. And two, now that I'm used to it, it's kind of hard to live without. So I feel almost pressured to buy that desert map just to get my military base back.
I mean, to give them somewhat the benefit of the doubt, I'll read some of the relevant part of the statement. The Destiny, this is from their website. The Destiny endgame features a variety of activities and playlists. We want to remain relevant to players as they grow more powerful. In Destiny 1, as your character grew more powerful throughout each expansion, some of our best content, like Vault of Glass, was left behind and lost its relevance for players. We wanted a better solution for Destiny 2, where all of our endgame activities could stay relevant as each expansion causes your Guardian to grow more and more powerful. Some of the details of that are lost to me, but this next part I think I understand. The following were our goals when we separated quote-unquote normal and quote-unquote prestige modes. The normal Leviathan raid and normal Nightfall would always stay at a power level that was accessible to all players. Prestige difficulty would always rise to the new power cap, so every time they put out a new expansion. It could be the pinnacle of challenge with the most prestigious rewards, and therefore it would require you to own the latest expansion and to be at the new power cap. So it sounds like their intention was to kind of be between like a regular AAA title and like almost a subscription model, where like they kind of expected players to an extent to keep paying into the game if they wanted to like advance with the content, I guess. I don't necessarily think that was the right way for them to go, and obviously people are super mad.
I think like a month and a half down the line was too early to make that move. Like if you're a PC player, this game came out relatively recently, maybe like next year, like fall 2018 you do that. So like the people who bought it had their share of it and were kind of done with it. They moved on. That's fine. But then, you know, the people who are still really invested in Destiny, if you're still playing it a year down the line, you're going to buy the DLC. Like, I don't know. I feel like this was definitely too early.
So no question. Destiny is like walking this really tough line where you have to pay full price for the game to start with. And then essentially, like you were saying, Jeremy, this is essentially a subscription model where you have to kind of get the DLC to continue playing. Because that's one of the biggest complaints with Destiny right now is there's not a lot of endgame content.
Yeah.
And if this is a looter shooter, it's all about the endgame content. And like paying for a base game and then essentially paying a subscription is not unheard of. I mean, that's like the World of Warcraft model kind of thing. But where it gets kind of tricky is Destiny and Bungie are essentially triple dipping by also offering loot box microtransaction stuff that you can get. So they're kind of getting everything, where things have been moving towards the if you want to do the games as a service idea, you're going to have to go free to play and then let people pay as they go.
Yeah. It is basically, it's like a triple dip. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That makes it a little difficult to kind of stomach a lot of the things they do off the bat.
You can only push your community so far.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's just the game's lacking right now. It's a looter shooter that people can get through in maybe under 50 hours, and that's kind of a problem. That's
a problem for something you're trying to sustain for the long term.
Right, and I know, like, I cuck for Warframe pretty hard. I mention it all the time, but if you're looking for endgame content in a free game, that's your option. I mean, they're kind of on the two different ends of the spectrum, where Destiny is a great game. It plays wonderfully. It's, especially coming from PUBG, it's nice to play a game that handles well, runs pretty consistently at high frame rate, and looks beautiful. But it's kind of simple for a looter shooter, whereas Warframe gives you the same stuff, but a huge, complicated end game that you may or may not be able to understand. So,
yeah,
I think they're in a tough spot, and I think this is not the last time we're going to hear controversy from them.
Oh, definitely.
No way.
Definitely. All right, going to move on a little bit. So we're going to move on to the Ataribox. This is interesting because actually it just got updated. So as of maybe the day of this recording is the 14th of December. As of probably 4 days before that, if you signed up for Atari's email service, they sent an email out saying, hey, on the 14th, which is today, you can pre-order our Ataribox, which we'll get into in a minute. And they actually just halted those pre-orders. You aren't able to pre-order it anymore.
Earlier today. Well,
yes.
I don't think the pre-order ever went live.
It never went live.
They earlier today said
they delayed.
Hashtag YOLO, hashtag JK Law, never mind.
Yeah. So, and I suspect this is largely due to the enormous amount of negative press that is coming from this. So, first off, this is technically an Atari console, but that's about as much as I can give it. So the Ataribox is not a Kickstarter. It's a Indiegogo campaign, which means you do not have to have a working proof of concept going live, and you do not necessarily have to have any reimbursement if you never have to make a product go live. Let me put it that
Oh,
way.
seriously?
Yeah, you can just take money.
Oof.
So,
So
yeah,
like less protections than Kickstarter, essentially.
much less is
Okay.
essentially what I'm saying. So that's kind of where the first problem starts. So you have the people who own the rights and logo to Atari. Let me put it that way. They don't own all the IP. They pretty much just own the name Atari and the right to distribute consoles. So it's running on a quote-unquote custom AMD processor. That is all we know for the specs, 100%. We also know that one model will have quote-unquote real wood. That is, I guess, another spec. And beyond that, we know that it runs Linux.
But Chris,
Yeah.
does the Nintendo Switch have real wood?
No, it has pretty shitty plastic, actually.
I rest my case.
So it's running Linux on a quote-unquote custom AMD processor. That's it. That's all we know about this. We don't know what the controller looks like. We don't have any announced games. We don't have anything. And they're looking for the pre-orders were going to be set at $250 to $300, depending on the model you got. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. This seems like a cash grab to me.
Well,
And is
sign me up.
Is the biggest difference between the $250 model and the $300 model the real wood? Is that
I believe so, yeah.
That's the jumping off point?
And I think there's probably more storage or something, you know.
God, $50
Or something.
for wood.
Well, I mean, it's teak. It's imported.
So
From where? The moon?
Nah, dude,
This- This to me sounds a lot like the chameleon. Are you familiar with the chameleon? The Coleco chameleon?
No.
No,
Okay.
get us up to speed.
So the Coleco chameleon, an ironic name that we'll get into, was guy Mike Kennedy said that he also launched this on Indiegogo, and he said, we're looking at a minimum of $300 for a sequel to the Coleco, sequel to a Coleco console. So we're going to make a new Coleco console. It's going to be called the Coleco Chameleon, and the team was requesting $2 million to get this product going because they didn't have a working prototype, and Indiegogo doesn't require that, and they said this is how much money we need to get the working prototype. So they got their money, and they kept promising that they were going to show up at events, and it kept getting delayed, whatever. Turns out they actually brought a model finally to an event, and everyone was looking at it, and they were like, why don't you show us a game? Like, why is it just in this case? Like, why can't we touch it? It was just this clear shell. It was just this clear shell. Nothing really looked okay with it. There weren't controller ports or anything, and everyone was kind of calling bullshit on it. They were like, this is nothing, and they were like, no, this is a console. People actually looked at it, took it apart, did some Photoshop wizardry. It was actually just a PCI card used for, it was a video capture card, is what it was, put in a plastic shell. And yeah, I mean, obviously it never went to market. It fell apart. They got their money, and that was that.
They bought their Lamborghini and drove off into the sunset.
Yeah, so I think this is looking to be in that realm. Personally.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been keeping up with it, but that's because this has smelled fishy from the very start when they first announced it. So, I mean, pretty much the only thing I have to add to this is I would not recommend anyone buy this console.
Yeah, don't pre-order it.
It's going to be a bad time.
Who the fuck
Don't
wants
even
an
buy it
Atari
after it
box?
comes out.
That's the other thing. Even if they had a lot of these IP, what is the most valuable Atari IP that you would want to see remade in 2018? Pitfall?
What IPs do they even have?
Well, they had. See, that's the other thing. When they went bankrupt, they had to auction a lot of these off. There's not a lot there, and none of it.
Hypothetically, what are some big Atari IPs?
That would be Pitfall, man.
Pitfall. There you go. Gotta
Like-
play some Pitfall.
So I'm looking at Atari's IP catalog as of 2015.
I always think that they own Monkey Ball, but they don't, right? That's Sega.
That's Sega.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, they really don't have much. It's pretty sad, actually. It's they're making an Indiegogo console.
Yeah, this is an obvious scam.
Yeah. So don't buy it, please.
Don't buy it.
Okay.
Please don't.
Yeah, I mean, there are no IP. I'm looking through everything. Atari existed in a time before IPs were the names of games were Starship One and Video, and Surround in combat. Like
The patent process was different.
yeah, it was a different time. Anyways, we're going to shift to something more optimistic, a little bit more exciting. So, the Nvidia Shield uses the Nvidia Tegra system on a chip and has very similar specs to the Nintendo Switch, in that the Nintendo Switch uses a custom Nvidia Tegra system on a chip. Aside from that, there are a few minor tweaks to specs, but the core processor is identical between the two, okay? In China, Nvidia Shield is launching with HD remakes of some Nintendo GameCube Wii games, such as Zelda Twilight Princess and New Super Mario Bros., which is interesting because I think this could be a wink and a nod to, hey, maybe you guys are going to be getting your GameCube Virtual Console coming up soon. There's a proof of concept right there that they're able to emulate and push Wii games on, and it looks like they're at a point in R&D where they actually have products that they're pushing to market. Any thoughts on that?
What is the Nvidia Shield?
It looks like an Xbox controller with a clamshell that you fold up, and it has a screen on it, and it plays games, and you can use it as like a stream box too.
So it's like a weird gaming laptop?
No, it's like literally an Xbox controller with a screen, but it has a Tegra in it, so it can play games.
So you were saying it's launching in China? I thought the Shield has been out for a while.
Yeah, so it's launching in China, but
It's been out since
it's
2015.
launching in China with these Nintendo games preloaded onto Shields.
Oh, I see.
So
Yeah.
the new Shields are coming prepackaged with these games.
Yeah. Basically.
Well, so the Chinese market is like pretty different when it comes to video games. Is Nintendo even allowed to distribute in China? on their own?
No, not on their own. They did that.
So-
They go through others.
So-
Okay.
So I think that would be a pretty big grain of salt in all this.
Well, no, this would be for an American push. This
What do you mean?
like the fact that these games are capable of being emulated on the Tegra would
Right.
indicate that Nintendo is capable and possibly prepared to come to market
Well,
with these games.
that's your theory, that because
Yeah.
they've preloaded them onto these NVIDIA Shields, which have similar specs to a Switch, that could be an indication that they're getting ready to launch the Virtual Console with those titles.
Yeah.
But then, so my grain of salt is that, as I was kind of just saying, the Chinese market is pretty different. I'm sure Nintendo gets an amount of money on every Shield that's sold with a Nintendo remastered game on it, and so that might be a way for Nintendo to be tapping into the Chinese market a little bit in a way that's not super expensive for them.
But
So
why
that could,
why wouldn't they just throw that software our way too?
I don't know, they're goofballs. Why have they? I mean, there could be a bunch of reasons. I agree. I think it's possible. I think it's always been possible, and I think that we've seen Nintendo. They've been a little more open to that sort of thing recently. Though they've always had the Virtual Console, but I think that they've been looking at different like monetization strategies. Why didn't they have those games on the Virtual Console for the Wii U? You know what I mean?
So the Wii. I mean, you could argue the Wii
They
U
could
is
have.
not up to par to emulate GameCube and Wii games.
But certainly Nintendo 64 games, and those weren't on the Virtual
Yeah, they
Console,
were.
they?
Yeah,
they were.
Yeah, they were on the Wii's Virtual Console.
Were they?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was. Yeah. No, this is more interesting from like a GameCube forward perspective, because I mean a Wii is essentially an overclocked GameCube. So
Right.
if you say GameCube, you can extend out.
And
to
obviously the Wii could play GameCube games natively.
yeah, and Zelda Twilight Princess is, you know, it was a GameCube game.
No, it's so. I mean, it seems like a definite possibility. I don't know if it's a sure thing or not. I think saying it's a wink and a nod is probably a little too strong, but I think it's a definite possibility.
All right.
Especially if they've already done the work. I think that's the best.
Yeah,
the
that's
point you put.
yeah.
They've already done the work. Like, why would you not, open it up? But as you know, they don't. Switch doesn't even have a virtual console yet.
I know
so maybe that'll be
part of it.
reveal.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be a big direct in January. I mean, almost definitely. It's not announced, but there will be. And yeah, that was what I was thinking. Like maybe we will see the beginnings of the virtual console in that direct.
Yeah. So in considering that, I mean, I was kind of always guessing that we would get GameCube, Wii games on the Switch eventually, because they seem to be porting a lot of stuff with launching their retro consoles again. It seems weird that they would let the Nvidia Shield sell all their Nintendo games. It seems like a direct competitor since it is essentially just an Nvidia Switch.
Well, that might be part of the partnership between Nvidia and Nintendo, because Nvidia provides the processors. That might have been part of their partnership deal.
Again, and they're not competing in China because Switch they can't sell hardware there.
And Nintendo has a solid history of piracy issues, especially with cartridge-based media. And the last time they went to China with hardware was through an N64 it was an N64 controller that you could plug into your TV. And it had games preloaded onto it. And the reason the games were preloaded was because they wanted to ensure that they couldn't be pirated. So this might be kind of a similar attempt in that they preload the stuff. So there's no cartridge distribution. There's no like flash storage going around.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that's what's happening right now. Hopefully, I hope in a month, I will be playing Mario Sunshine on my Switch. We'll see.
Let's hope so.
We'll see.
We'll see. So we're gonna move on to PUBG because we can't go a week without talking about that. It launched on Xbox One and Xbox One X 2 days ago on December 12th. And again, this is the early access version of PUBG, or Microsoft's version of the early access. It runs poorly.
It is the first look version.
Yeah,
Yes.
They call it a game preview, I think.
Game preview.
There we go.
It is, to no one's surprise, I feel like, not running super well. And definitely not up to a console player standards, I would say. I think a lot of PC players, when they go into early access, they kind of expect a fair amount of jank. But I guess this is, Digital Foundry did a pretty cool video on, they always do cool videos, but they did a really cool video where they had an Xbox One player doing duos with an Xbox One X player, and they were right next to each other, so they were standing in the same place, and they had their classic frame pacer running the whole time, and they were showing differences in performance relatively, but at least with the base Xbox One, it's pretty much always going to be in the 20s, and the low 20s at that, and like when you jump out of the plane, it's like 4 frames a second.
Yes, that's what I heard, is like the game chugs. Like it's already locked at 30 maximum, and you pretty much never hit it, even with the Xbox One.
Well, the One X, it looks like hits it. If it definitely hits it, and to the One's credit, it's also running 4K, which is cool.
Right, that's true.
But but that's only part of the problem. So there are significant frame rate issues with being in the very consistently the just vanilla Xbox One is in the teens. That's kind of its standard running rate is in the teens. And it can drop to 4. It can get up to the 20s, the low 20s.
No, it can hit 30. It can stay at 30.
The regular Xbox One?
Yeah, when there's not a lot going on, it does hit 30.
That's not really what it suggested in the article, or at least to my reading.
Oh, I mean, from what Digital Foundry showed, they got it to 30 for a while.
It's possible.
Not common.
But yeah, not well. All right. So we'll just leave it at there are significant frame rate issues. But beyond that, the graphics on the vanilla Xbox One look terrible.
Yeah.
Like they just look abysmally bad. And the view distance is significant, or the draw distance, I suppose, is significantly less than on the Xbox One X, or certainly what you would see on PC. Like they had what Chris was describing, an image of someone playing on the Xbox One X, and then or whichever one, I don't fucking know, and then someone playing in just a standard Xbox side by side, and they were in the lobby, and the individual on like the newest Xbox could see in the pretty near distance someone had like thrown a Molotov cocktail and there was a fire, and then on the Xbox, the regular Xbox One, that wasn't loaded in, and so they were reporting like people driving a car, and because the draw distance is so short, just like spontaneously a tree pops up right in front of you and you crash.
Yeah. And
So correct me if I'm wrong, but PUBG on the PC had this same issue, like really close to when it launched in early
I was
access.
gonna say PUBG. So we all kind of bought PUBG around the same time, but I bought into it first. PUBG came out in like April. Can you imagine? We bought it in like late June, early July. Can you imagine how bad it must have been in April?
Yes.
And that was when they were still doing huge monthly patches. It was pretty bad when we got our hands on it. So I
Right.
mean, I guess I think the bigger issue here is that, and Brian made a good point last week, where if you're gonna walk into a store and buy like a physical disc, you expect more.
I think the console market is just very different.
Yeah.
Like PC gamers again, and like I don't want to come off like I like dislike consoles or hate consoles. I have many consoles, and I enjoy them very much. But I certainly know, when I was a kid, for instance, I had a PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and part of what you do is like you're like, oh, like I want this game for Christmas or whatever, and you may not be, if you're a kid, you may not be like the most savvy about like every review that a game's ever got. You might just think like, oh, PlayerUnknown, that looks cool, a lot of people play that, whatever. And like if you come home with like a game that flat out doesn't work, like I think that the bad press will stick out a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think the expectation is a lot higher.
It is.
And that could, I think, be a more significant problem than it was for PC, where, like you said, I think players have a certain expectation of like, yeah, this is early access, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as like PC players like to rag on console players, like there is an argument for getting a console, and it's that you kind of know what to expect, because people are only developing for one set of hardware, so you're kind of going to get a game that works and runs consistently at whatever they say it's going to run at. And if you're getting PUBG, that says you could hit maybe 30 frames sometimes, but it's not really happening. Like, unfortunately, that kind of sucks, because at least with PC, like, at least we can fidget with the settings, maybe drop the VSync, drop the AA, maybe drop the shadows, and kind of get it up to somewhere better. But with Xbox, you're kind of just stuck with what you have. If you're getting 10 frames a second, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. And I mean, I expect the Xbox One X version will hit a solid 30 frames per second at 4K. I think the actual Xbox One version will never quite. I think it's always going to be a bit janky. I think
in the future.
In the future, I think as it continues to develop, I think it will get better, but I don't think it'll ever be a rock solid 30. Right. I think it'll be variable. And Digital Foundry largely concluded that it was a CPU bound issue. So lowering the resolution or something isn't necessarily going to be an instant fix. This is really an optimization issue. And there's a lot of 100 people jumping out trying to keep track of 100 people's locations. Not easy.
So I mean, on the optimization point, I mean, as you said, no one's really surprised that it doesn't run well on the Xbox. We all kind of thought that was going to be the case. But I recently saw an article that the Coalition, who developed Gears of War 4, is a development team with Microsoft.
Largely considered to be the most technically impressive Xbox One game.
And they've been helping PUBG with the development for at least for their Xbox release. I don't know if
Yeah.
in general they've been helping.
No, just for the
just for
Xbox
the
release.
Xbox. Yeah.
So the fact that it's not optimized to the point where it can't even hit
Well-
30 frames a second on your Xbox One, that really surprises me that they had all this help from a seasoned development team and they still couldn't hit
But-
the mark.
But think of, so assuming they are pushing this out as like realistically like an alpha, think of just like as you being a developer, your like first pass on code. The first time you get it working before you like optimize it, it's pretty slow, at least my experience. Like I can write, just recently I was working on something that it's supposed to complete its task on average in about like 5 seconds. It was taking 30 minutes. But, I got it down to 5 seconds. It just, your first pass is going to be really poorly optimized.
Right. I think the problem is
Unless
that they released their first
unless
pass.
you're Jake. Unless you're Jake.
Yeah.
And you,
Well,
right?
no, I mean it's true. Like you write something to get it to work, and then you fix it later.
Yeah, and they
And
pushed out what worked, and
the problem is they pushed out what worked, and
Yeah.
what worked is kind of shit, and that's a problem.
yeah,
What
it's
works doesn't really work.
not for the consumer. It works for them. It doesn't work for the consumer.
It
Right.
works that you can trick some people into buying it.
Yay.
We also, I think, so Jake, I think I expect that the Xbox version probably. I'm actually a little jealous because I suspect in the long run their version of PlayerUnknown is probably going to be pretty well optimized and probably be hitting roughly the targets that it should be hitting, just not yet. And we don't know, based on at least what I've seen in reporting, we don't know exactly when the coalition started working with PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds Corporation on the actual optimization. To my mind, the fact that these stories are just coming out now after the game launched and there was significant criticism of technical, issues with the game, it's kind of Microsoft saying like, guys, we've got it. Like without admitting faults, they're kind of saying, kind of reassuring, kind of letting consumers know, or at least people who are pretty knee deep in video games, who might get some of this stuff like we do. Or as in it might reach them. They might actually find the content, that they do have something in place to try and improve it. Like it doesn't seem like they've probably been working with them for that long, but I think in the long run they'll probably tidy it up a good deal.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, kind of erring on the same page of the Battle Royale genre, I have a question for both of you. What AAA franchise do you think would make the best, kind of most interesting Battle Royale mode? So next year or in 2 years when AAA franchises kind of catch up to this and start pushing them out, what do you think the best iteration will be?
So like if any AAA franchise could be
Yeah.
spun off into a battle royale game.
Or had like a Battle Royale mode.
Oh man.
Pokemon Crystal.
Pokemon Crystal. Announced for the 3DS, by the way, just so everyone knows.
Next week.
Just throwing that out there.
I think, as bad as the recent Mass Effect game was, I think Mass Effect Battle Royale would be pretty cool.
All right.
You get
Interesting.
good gunplay, you get superpowers. That'd be pretty sweet.
Interesting.
We haven't really had a Battle Royale game that has like abilities, which would
Fortnite
hopefully-
kind of... Well, Fortnite had the crafting, not really unique abilities. I see what you're saying.
right.
I mean, I suppose like define Battle Royale, right?
Yeah, so we'll say a deathmatch, perma-deathmatch of 100 people.
I'm going to go in a similar vein to Jake and say, despite the recent poor performance, I would say some Star Wars game. I don't want to say Star Wars Battlefront, because fuck that shit. But a Star Wars game by any other name. I think that's an IP that I would like to see go in a Battle Royale direction. Because again, you could bring superpowers by another name into it a little bit with heroes and shit like that. I don't know how you would necessarily incorporate that into the gameplay. But I'm a Star Wars fan. I would be interested in seeing that sort of shit. What What do you think, Chris? What would be like a way to mix it up a little?
Yeah, so I struggle.
Zelda?
So there are the obvious ones. Like
Super Mario 2?
I think Battlefield would be fun, for instance. But I think the one that's kind of standing out the most to me at the moment. This is going to be hard to illustrate, so stick with me. It's going to be hard to also pinpoint the franchise. But like think like a MOBA where there's that like top-down perspective, which is a little different, but there's a lot. It requires a lot of micro, a lot of twitch movements, a lot of good tight controls, and there's that intrinsically in like a MOBA map. There's like the farming of enemies for experience, which would get you something. I think, take that kind of top-down perspective of like a MOBA with really intense micro on a big map, and you're going to use that intense micro in exchange for that top-down perspective. So you're going to be able to see people a lot easier, but it's going to be a lot more Twitch-based, and the loot hunting will be kind of like a PvE type of thing. So basically take a MOBA, blow it up real big, and do Battle Royale. So go, maybe up to squads and fight to the death, essentially, on it.
You want to know something kind of interesting is there's a game out right now called Foxhole in early access that is a top-down war game where it's essentially like, I think it's 60v60, essentially battle in a kind of a battlefield war game top-down. That's pretty similar to
Not far
Royale.
off from what I'm describing. Yeah.
So that's interesting that you brought that up. But the other thing I wanted to bring up was I think a melee kind of fantasy-based battle royale would be pretty awesome too.
That was the first thing that jumped to my mind. But then I think the only question for me is I don't know. So like I'm very stuck in the world of PlayerUnknown and the way that plays. I don't know how melee would translate to that. I think the game dynamics would obviously be really, really, really different.
Right.
Jake,
Well, have you played
Jake.
the For Honor combat system?
I was
I
just
have
gonna
not.
say, what about For Honor?
Yeah, because I think that would be the coolest thing ever is a For Honor battle royale. You need a better ranged combat system, but that would be amazing.
All right.
But because the For Honor combat system is considered to be pretty deep, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be that deep, but something along the lines of like blocking and attacking. Not Skyrim kind of combat, more along the For Honor kind of combat.
Yeah, I know what Jake's saying.
Where you could somewhere where you could maybe get on a big map and actually get into some like wander your way into some still tactical and meaningful melee combat that didn't just like end with you getting cheesed really fast.
Right, something that kind of brings skill into the mix.
All right, I got another crazy one. I like this. This is going places. Jake, stick
Yeah.
with me. This is you're gonna have to help me out on this one.
Okay.
Dragon's Dogma.
all right.
That, but essentially that kind of more action focused, but PvP, battle royale. Just think of like the pawns as like your squad mates, or you go solo. But there's the looting element, and that I don't know. I just think that could translate too.
That'd be interesting. If you
Big
could like
map, Dragon's
have
Dogma.
CPU squad mates.
Yeah.
If you're like, man, I want to do a squad of 4, but I have no friends. Just get like 3 CPUs.
So the two ideas that I had, that I think the two ideas that I had, the ones that are sticking with me the most is I would like some sort of PvE element mixed into the PvP element. Like I'd be even cool with like a zombie apocalypse battle royale where
Yeah.
you're doing PvP battle royale, like the Division almost a little bit, but you have like a PvE element on the big map, and that integrates into the looting. So looting isn't just you statically going and looking for loot. There is some of that, but at the same time there's also a kind of balance of PvE where we'll run with zombies, you see the zombies and you say, all right, they have something that I need, or they're guarding something that I need. I could kill them, but that risks my health. That could also make noise that could draw other players in. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. I think we need a PvE element.
That could
would
be cool.
That'd be a good way to bring abilities and skills into the mix too, leveling up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like this.
Guys, we should make a game.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
it'd be great.
Cohesive friendship.
This sounds like a pretty demanding game.
Jake and I got it. We just,
PvE elements, melee combat, an immersive environment, 60 frames per second, 4K, 100 players, no problem.
Dude, I programmed once. We got this.
Dude, I'm friends with I actually my roommate was a computer science student once, so
That's cool.
I'm pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, so you got all the skills you need.
I think so. We talked about computers.
Any closing thoughts on this this Battle Royale discussion?
I'm hyped for. Well, actually, all right. I'm going to back up and be serious for a second. I think I'm excited to see what the next Battle Royale game that comes out is, because PUBG is good, but I'm excited to see what the improved version of Battle Royale ends up being.
PUBG really is sticking with me in that it's the first kind of military sim-ish game that I've played, and I think that's what's like keeping me going with it. Also, the idea is I do like.
It's a good game mode.
It's a great game.
Great game mode. Okay, well, anyways, we want to hear what you have to say about Battle Royale. Comment below what you think the next big Battle Royale innovation should be, or what the next big AAA IP should be to integrate Battle Royale in a cool, meaningful way. And we also want to hear what you thought about Hellblade, what you think about the Ataribox. Is it a big scam? What you think about Destiny? Do you play Destiny? Maybe you can talk to Jake about it.
Hit me up on the Destiny, guys. I'm interested to convince me, because I'm a long-time Warframe player. Convince me Destiny's good.
And obviously, we want you to subscribe, like the video, give us your feedback. We're relatively new. We're looking for feedback. I'm sorry we don't have Brian tonight to give a riveting like and subscribe session. But any closing thoughts from you guys?
Not
GG.
much.
GG.
Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't.
All right. Great night. We'll catch you guys next week. I think we're going to be doing a little different Game of the Year's show, and hopefully reviewing the Super Mario cereal. Have a good one. We'll catch you in the next one.